Welcome back. This is a brand new lecture, and I promise that we are going to see each other in the next section. But I will just add a couple of more lectures here where I think that this is necessary. So we haven't talked about JavaScript Scope, but it's very important for you to understand what is global, local, and how we can do automatically global, and also the lifetime of JavaScript variables. So open up your VS Code, create a new lecture number 10, and make sure that you link it here in the index, right? Okay, now let's talk about what is JavaScript scope. With JavaScript, the global scope is the complete JavaScript environment. And in HTML, the global scope is the window object. So remember, I think I've told you about window object. So if you type window here and hit return or enter, we will see a lot of things inside. Even our alert function that we were using before. So let's use that alert and say hi here. Not ho, just hi. And here you go. Now you know that where this alert was coming from. So any global variables here that we are going to be creating, they're also going to be accessible to the window object. Okay, so the window scope or window object will have all of our global variables and they will belong to the window object. For example, what is a global variable? So global variable can be accessed anywhere. For example, var first name, and I will say Rick here. And if I try to console.log first name, I would be able to console because this is a global variable. Now, if I create a function called first, and if I don't pass any parameters, and if I console log first name, again, I will be able to access this Rick. I don't see it because we need to actually call the function, right? So Rick. Now that is pretty much cool because global variables, once we declare them and we put a value to them, then they can be accessed anywhere. All right. Now, one more thing. The function in JavaScript, all of the functions create its own scope. So the scope here in this function that we are going to create, I'm just going to comment out this one. For example, I'm going to create a variable called last name. How cool is this? So we're going to say, and I'm going to console log the variable here, last name. But this variable is actually, let's put it up a comment, local. So it's not global, lives inside this function. When we have these curly brackets in the body, that means, okay, whatever we're going to define here is going to be locally for this function. So here it is. I do have the last name. But what if I want to access the same function outside here? So console.log, so not function, sorry, the variable that we define as a local. All right. Now I do have uncaught reference error. Last name is not defined. Well, it's true. It's not defined outside the function. And why? So I don't need this actually. So every local variable cannot be accessed outside the function, right? Because that is called the function scope. And let's create here, each function in JavaScript has its own scope. Let's put here each function. Cool. That is pretty much it. You need to understand the difference between global and local. This is local for this function. So consider this as a parent and this as a child. So function can use the parents and its own variables, but the parent will not be able but we not be able to use the local defined variables outside in the parent, right? That's the whole point of this. So the scope determines the visibility of this variable. Again, global means everywhere. So the global scope, again, in HTML, so in this browser here, let me just delete everything, refresh it once more. Let's console log this one. We don't need it. That was just the example. So again, in HTML is the window object, and every window object has access to all global variables, like here, first name. So we can just access the first name, See there. And even if I print out only the window, only the window object, hit return or enter in Windows, the first name should be, here it is, somewhere there. So that is pretty much what I want to say here. Now, to summarize, we have global and local scope. JavaScript has function scope. Each function has its own scope, right? As I explained. Variable defined inside, they're called local, and they cannot be visible outside this function. Now, another interesting point is, what is automatically global? Let me just first write a function here. Function second function, and this is actually the call of the second function. I haven't created. Let's create here second function, and inside this function I will have let's create car name equal Toyota. Very good. Now save it. So what you think will happen? I don't see anything here because I don't print out. But if I do console.log car name, voila, there it is. The Toyota is there. But how this is possible? So here I don't have declaration of the variable. When we do var, we declare it and we initialize we put a value to that variable. So if we assign a value to a variable like this that has not been declared, so var, if we put var like this, then this becomes local. And also we don't have anywhere car name here. So that means that it's not global. So because of this, when we try to declare, if we assign a value to a variable that has not been declared, then automatically becomes a global variable. And even in the window object, we can use window dot car name. Here we go. Perfect. That is also very important to know. Now, remember that we can access the functions with the window object. For example, if I try to access the first function, here it is. First, I do have access through the window object. And why is this? Well, because in JavaScript, objects and functions are also considered as variables. In every variable, it's defined like this, it's considered as a global. Okay, now you know why we can access with the window in this HTML browser, right? We can access the functions. Okay, now the lifetime of JavaScript variables. So the lifetime of a JavaScript variable starts when it's declared. This one here starts when it's declared. Now, local variables, like here, like this function, they will be deleted when this function is completed. So we invoke the function, and invoke means, okay, run this function. And after it's finished here, after it produces its result, and this local variable, bam, is deleted. It's not there. It's not in the memory anymore. What about the browser here? What about all of these global variables that was be able to be accessed by the window? Well, when we close this browser here, when we close it, or if we have a new tab, when we close that one, that means that all of the global variables will be deleted from this browser. And that's pretty much it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you know what global and local means. And I'm so happy because we have done this. And this is going to be very useful for you in future. Now you know that whatever you define here, it will be considered as a global. One more thing, the function arguments. We can pass arguments here. Or we say sometimes parameters. But function arguments work as a local variables inside the function. Very good. So I will see you in the next one and enjoy.